Through the concrete cracks worn weary by work boots and high heels. Through the concrete cracks showered in tears of sorrow, tears of joy. Through the concrete cracks rumbled by reverberations of 100 years, a flower on the hill takes its first breath, and a grand hope springs. Welcome to the Spring Street podcast at the intersection of creation and destruction in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. And now, a word from the sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Starship Kairos, a podcast studio available for bookings in downtown Los Angeles. Starship Kairos is where my guests and I make this show happen. Soundproofed, cozy, and equipped with professional audio gear, Starship Kairos is an ideal location for any type of podcast. Starship Kairos offers a full suite of services including content consultation, mixing and mastering, and custom jingle writing. For rates and booking, check them out on Instagram at Starship Kairos or click on the link in the description. And now, let's dive in. Okay, Nicholas Kozushko.
Hello.
Welcome to the Spring Street podcast.
Thank you.
Do you want me to call you Nicholas or can I call you Nick?
You can call me Nick. We are brothers.
This is true, in case anybody can't tell. Lot to talk about today. Today's a very special day. Today has been a long time waiting. You released the song Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote that song how many years ago?
About 8 years ago.
8 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Walk me through the timeline of this song. Why did it take you 8 years to put this song out? Why was today the moment?
Well, it took a long time, mostly because when I started writing it, the birth of the song, the core of it, is like a profound, impactful, pivotal moment in my life where I'm a young teenager going through love and loss and all that, and wanting to be able to tell it in a story that's going to be able to connect with people. And any way that I wrote it out at that time was just not working. But I knew that deep down that there was a story there to tell, and I just didn't know how to unfold it. I had a guitar part, the guitar part in the song. It kind of goes throughout the whole song for whoever listens to it. But I had that like almost instantly. And I just knew that it would be something like that. That riff would be the foundation of what my sound was going to be and all that. So there was just I just put a lot of weight and pressure on that one song. And I just told myself I was never going to put it out or release it until I knew that like it was how it was supposed to be. And it's still one of those songs where like it still evolves weirdly. Like I feel like I'm like 20 years from now, the way that I'm going to play it is going to be profoundly different than how it is on the record. But it finally got to a point after I've lived some life and I wrote like 100 other songs just to get back to that one song. It finally got to a point where I was comfortable with it, and it took about 8 years. So
wow,
sometimes this is how it goes.
What changed the most? Was it the lyrics?
Yeah, it was it was about finding the right. No, it was a combination of lyricism, but also melody and tone. Trying to find something that was. I knew I wanted it to just be like straightforward, very monotone, but not boring.
Mm-hmm.
And just not over the top either, because I didn't want it to be. I'm spilling my guts here, so I don't want to make it like all like I don't want my voice to just be like the loudest voice in the room and just annoy people. Like I wanted to have a tone that came across as it's okay if nobody listens to this, but I still want you to listen to it at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The song is about a breakup, right? Or is it more about
it's part of it, yeah. But it's mostly about growing up, I think.
Mm.
And I think that's why it took 8 years to write it.
Yeah.
Because initially it was from a breakup. but the song itself is about learning how to cope with like being on your own, growing up, becoming your own person, being comfortable, like just when you don't have anything going for you, just being comfortable with that and learning how to grow from it and getting through it. And so that's the song. Is at the end of it, it's like I've finally gotten through that thing, right? And now that I'm out on the other end, I'm better from it. So I had to go through 8 years of living my life, and kind of becoming my own person, for that song to make sense.
Yeah. Is that the oldest song on the record that you have coming out? Wow.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to put it out first, because I figured I'd honor that song. You know, that's the song I started first, so it's gonna be put out first. And it also kind of, not to put a whole lot of pressure on that song, but I wanted it to be, I always had it in my mind to be a foundation and like a stepping stone to like enter into other songs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you were also very intentional about the date that you released it, because you released it on a little bit of an unconventional day.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I recorded the song in August with the intention of being able to have it come out in the early fall, because the song is predominantly about that season. But I think it's applicable for any other time. But it talks about that season as an entry point into it.
Fall came soon as the rain.
Yeah, and I just wanted it to like come out right when fall hit, just to have that extra impact. But then, as you know, with music, bureaucracy, politics, whatever, corporate mumbo jumbo, things take longer than they should, and so it was a rushed thing to like get it out. And so I was able to get it like just at the end of November before December hits, and everyone's thinking about Christmas time in December, so I'm like, I gotta get it in the fall, which is great because it just got in that music and fashion magazine talking about how like this is like the perfect song for fall, and I'm like, man, I'm glad that I got it out when I did.
I was actually just gonna mention that. I think that it's pretty cool that happened, because I was giving you a hard time about not releasing it on Friday, and you were like, I need to release it before December because it's got to be in fall.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that you posted that, which blows my mind that they wrote an article about it the same day you submitted it to them.
Crazy. Yeah.
Absolutely unreal.
Yeah, totally.
And you did that through Submit Hub. Did you get any other bites today at all?
Yeah, there was one other company. They said that they saw it, they want to promote it,
dude.
And so I'm gonna hear back from him.
Amazing. Is it a magazine or is it a playlist?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that's insane.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gotten that quick of a response when I've used Submit Hub. So that is really, really cool that that worked out for you. Dang, dude. Well, I want to go back a little bit. You have a very interesting story in music. Music licensing has been a pretty big part of your life ever since you were in high school. And it's also been essentially something that you've begun to build a career on as a professional musician, producer, composer. Tell me a little bit about how you got into that world and what that evolution has looked like over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, I'll just start off by saying most people don't really know what music licensing is.
Okay, let's start at the basics. Like, what is music
sometimes
licensing?
an ethereal concept, just like how like some people don't know what like mastering a song is or anything like that. But music licensing, just for anybody who doesn't know about that, is essentially writing music specifically for a visual medium, like a commercial or a TV show or a movie. And it's a different kind of format. It's how you make that music. The arrangements are done differently. The lyrics are done a little bit differently. There's some subtle nuances that can differentiate it between regular artistic music and sync music is what it's called in that industry. But I got into that world actually because I was really into artistic music. In high school, I remember I was like 15 or 16. I was watching an interview with a guy named Mark Foster from the band Foster the People, which was a band I absolutely loved. And I actually got into Foster the People through playing in my old band Down Is Up, Up Is Down with Ken Anderson, who
shout out to Kent.
Yeah, shout out to Kent.
Love you, man. We miss you.
But yeah, he put me on to Foster the People, and I was watching this interview with Mark Foster, and he was just talking about how he got his start into music. I can't remember where he's from, but I know that he moved to LA, and he was like trying to like make a career out of music. And he mentioned just like in passing that he got into writing jingles for a publishing company. And at the time I was like, that like perked my ear. I was like you did that? Like you're cool. Like you are a cool person. Why are you writing jingles? Because I thought that was just like selling out or something, you know? And arguably it like there's still an argument to have about writing commercialized music. But yeah, that kind of perked my interest in it. I'm like, okay, if Mark Foster's doing it, then like I guess it is cooler than than I thought it was. And so just like on a whim, I started writing jingles in my bedroom on my old 2010 MacBook, and didn't have any intention or idea of it getting placed. It was kind of more of like just practicing how to record, how to produce, and with the idea of like, oh, this would be for a commercial. And it just kind of sat on my hard drive for a long time. And then it wasn't until I graduated or I was around close to graduation, I started interning at this recording studio in Portland with a guy named Troy Wellstad, amazing keys player. Shout out to Troy.
Do you remember the name of the studio?
I don't know if he had a name for it.
The unnamed
Wellstad studio. I don't know.
It was Troy's
He's
studio.
Gonna slap me for that. But there was just one day where a guy came in who he had they were doing a session for a commercial, and this guy owned a publishing company, which was I think it was called R&E Audio at the time. It was like just getting started. It may have had a different name. But it just ended up being that like in a kind of like a down time where not much was happening, I worked up the courage to go talk to this guy. And I just asked him like, hey, how do you get into writing music for commercials and all that? And we started talking about it for a little bit, and I asked if I could share with him some stuff that I've been working on, because it just so happened that I had these jingles on my hard drive just kind of sitting there. And so I didn't have to like prepare anything. I was just like, I'm ready to just send this guy something that I have. And so I emailed him like 2 jingles or something, and I wasn't expecting any kind of return at all, but he ended up hitting me back up and telling me that it was like really licensable, really syncable, which just meant that it would be good for a commercial. Like I guess it just had the right energy or something like that. I had this like really jangly poppy guitar part that I had written out, and he asked if he could like buy it from me. And
how old were you at this time?
Take it 18. Yeah. And so I sold it to him. I think I actually I sold it, but then also had some like writers on it still. And they took it and then they just produced it, and then like they produced what I had. They took my turd and polished it essentially.
They made it a diamond.
And then that song ended up getting placed in like 100 different things. It had like a Bath and Body Works commercial, a Lowe's improvement, had something from Microsoft, and just like, like 50 others that I never got to actually see.
Wow.
But it was just insane as an 18-year-old to see your song get thrown into that medium so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started getting checks in the mail. And I remember that was when my parents were like, Nick, you could make a career out of it. Like, you could actually do this. You should do this. And that was the first time my parents told me told me that about anything. And they're going to disagree with me if they watch this. But that really was like a moment where I felt some like legitimate affirmation in something that I was good at from them, and had proof to show that I was good at it. And so that's kind of what opened the door for me to start like diving into it more and more and more and more. And so I started learning how to just compose for commercials. And I worked with that company, R&E Audio, and learned a lot from the owner and from their in-house producer. Learned how to mix, how to arrange, how to write lyrics, and I've written dozens of tracks now that get synced. So, yeah.
What's interesting is that you have no formal education in audio production and audio recording, but you're a big self-learner when it comes to, like, in terms of like creating your own curriculum, learning on your own, whether it's through resources or like teachers or individuals. Like, you didn't go to a school for it. You didn't go to like Full Sail Academy.
No, never.
So what have been some of the most important things in growing as a producer, as a mixing engineer, as a producer and a composer?
The most important things?
Yeah, what have been some of those most important moments? Whether it was like mentors or certain master classes or even like YouTube videos. Like, what stands out when you look back at like pivotal moments that shaped you?
Well, I mean, working with people that are like way better than you, that you can just absorb knowledge from like instantaneously has always been the best advantage. Being able to like get people that have 20 years of experience on you jumping on your track, and then you asking them like, hey, how did you do that? Like, can you show me how to do that? Like, that was huge. And then when they're not around, YouTube was an amazing source. But I'm at this point now where I feel like I've scoured like the depths of YouTube with like every production video now, and I feel like at this point I've seen like everything that's super valuable on YouTube when it comes to audio production.
Yeah, there's
there's some channels every once in a while that I'll come across and be like, oh, that's super cool. There's one called Sage Audio, which I've really been liking as well. And there's another guy, an Australian dude, I can't remember his name. Maybe I'll think of it later. So I was also just obsessed with, like, for whatever reason, like, I just wanted to know how to make something sound good. Like, it all kind of started from like buying a laptop. And I think honestly, like, with the company Apple at the time, they were promoting the band Foster the People, and they had one of Mark Foster's songs. I think it was I'm gonna botch the name. Houdini, I think is what it was. They had all the stems in Logic.
I think I remember.
So
this.
you could see like this guy produced like a radio hit just on a laptop. And then they showed all the stems so that you could like dissect it. And I remember being in the Apple store as a kid, like combing through that and just like learning, like just figuring out like as much as I could while I was in the Apple store.
Was that
like,
at Bridgeport?
That was at Bridgeport, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. And just like learning how he made that hit in like, in the 15 minutes that I was there, and then going back home and trying to replicate it.
Yeah.
And obviously failing miserably at the time, but it just took patience. But I, for whatever reason, I just had this obsession that I I can't explain. I just wanted to know how to produce super badly. I was so like I wanted to like I remember just going into the studio to like record a song and not even like finishing writing a song. I just wanted to like set up the mics, or I just wanted to like plug the guitar in to the interface and like just start recording before I even had a finished idea. Which always leads you into trouble for any young producers.
Why is that?
Well, if you don't go in with a finished idea, you can there's several outcomes. For one, you'll spend hours and hours on hours on maybe the beginning of a song and never have an ending point. Or you'll get caught up in some sort of like 8-bar loop that has no B section or C section, and so you just have that infinite loop that sounds dope, but no one else is going to care about it.
Yeah.
And then you just spend hours on something, and then at the end of the day, it's like it's still not done. So before you go into recording something, is what I've learned most recently is like make sure you have a beginning and an end, so that you know where to start and where you're going, so that you're not chasing your tail when you're actually in the world of sonics, because you'll get, it's like a black hole. You'll just get lost in reverbs and delays and EQs and compression and all that.
Yeah. In terms of your setup, that is a whole other world of its own that people like. It's a few different rabbit holes. What, in brief though, is your setup, like the most important elements of your setup to make your, like, to produce your music?
Just like an instrument that you're able to play, either piano or guitar. I've seen some producers that are just really good drummers. So an instrument, a MIDI keyboard, an interface, and a laptop, pair of headphones.
What kind of interface are you using?
I have an old school one, just a Focusrite Sapphire. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, just the 8-rack, the 8-channel interface.
Dude, I don't think I realized you're using Focusrite. That's crazy. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed by Focusrite. Like,
I mean, it'll do the trick. The preamps are fairly weak. Like you gotta make sure you're in a quiet space if you're gonna work with a Focusrite, because at least in my experience, you just have to like really crank those preamps, unless you already have a external preamp that you're going through. Yeah. Which, like, I operate off of an old rig that's just been juiced up, so I like to actually use the older stuff. Yeah. Because it's cheaper, and I'm leaning more towards using analog preamps anyways, just because that's always going to be good. And I don't want to have to keep up with new computer tech all the time. I just want like my one sound that's always going to be good. Yeah. You know? Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
What about microphone? What are you using the majority of the time?
The first mic I ever bought actually was this mic.
Yep. SM7B.
Yeah, SM7B, which again, if you have a preamp, those cloud lifters are a huge godsend. I didn't have one of those in high school, so I always had a quiet signal. So my mixes were always noisy because I'd have to crank it up. And I wouldn't know. Like I didn't know that was an issue. I didn't know anything about phantom power. I don't even think these use phantom power actually.
They do. Yeah.
They have phantom power.
On and, and we're on the cloud lifter too, so.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. Wow. It's really juiced up. It's a dynamic microphone, so I don't think it needs phantom power.
Somebody suggested to me, it does have, if I were to turn that phantom off, it's not going to work. Yeah. So these ones do need it.
Got you. Well, the cloud lifter needs phantom power.
So maybe that's why then. That must be why.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so you're using an SM7B. You got a Focusrite 8-channel. Yeah. You're working in Logic. Yeah. And then what? I don't want to go into like every single.
I'll also say, my first interface I ever bought was an Apogee 1, just a 1-channel interface, and actually I used the microphone on that, the internal condenser microphone, before I even bought the SM7.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I had a laptop I bought for $700, I think, and then I bought an interface for $200,
Mm-hmm.
and that interface had a microphone in it, and then I was using stock plugins all through high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that first track that you sold was just using those elements?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because they took it to the next level.
I've
produced
also sold like I've sold several jingles literally just using like a computer and headphones to mix.
Wow.
And so that's also made me realize how much you can do even with just like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You know?
At this point in the game, how many different companies are you writing sync music for?
I think 4.
Yeah.
4 or 5. It's so hard to balance all of them. Like,
Yeah.
it's at this point now where, like, if I were to add another one, it's impossible. You know, it's at this point, it's more of like it's me switching out companies or something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I could write for more than 4.
Yeah.
Just because, like, I'm not one of those guys where like I write like I can like finish and produce like 3 songs in a day or something like that. I could probably get like 3 starts going on in a day or something.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, like, you know, I have like a month to like get a few, like 5 or 6 songs like fully produced and like sound where I want them to be. And that leaves me a lot of time to like do other things in my life as well.
Yeah.
You know? So
this might be a hard question to answer, but is there an average amount of time that it takes to get a track to completion from start to finish for
no,
sync?
it's different. I'm learning as I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there's a song or a genre or style that I'm like a novice at, or a novice at,
Mm-hmm.
and it will just take super long, even though for some people it could take a day.
Yeah.
I'm learning. I've never written in that genre, so it's going to take me like a week to like listen to that kind of music and deconstruct it and then assemble it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that. You know, I love being able to open up and step into a new world, like a new world of sound that I've never been in, and learn how to recreate it
Mm-hmm.
and how to make it my own thing.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that's one thing I love about music licensing is you can just dive into like any genre. Like I've written EDM stuff, hip hop stuff, rock and roll, country, classical, reggae.
Yeah. What genre does the best? Like, is there one particular genre that's getting sync placements more than any other?
Yeah, actually, what does really well is sort of like a blend of retro and hip hop. Like having very classic sounding bright brass with low booming 808s.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like just think about I don't know, maybe something by Dua Lipa or something like that.
Okay.
You know? Trying to think of a pop song that has like bright brass. Can't think of anything right now. But Dua Lipa's coming to my mind for some reason. So yeah. Like it's got like there's like a huge disco vibe that is just like all the rave right now in the licensing world. People love that like with a bass line, you know, like and a tambourine.
Yeah.
And like you know,
yeah,
that's huge. And then you'll have like a and
dude,
so,
I could see the commercial already.
Exactly.
Man. It's Target.
Yeah.
It's like Downy. It's some weird laundry commercial.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I just wrote this one. I called it City Swag, and it's got like a really groovy like roofed, like if there was a drummer on a rooftop playing like a groove, and then I have like this is actually a genre that it's somewhat different than what I just described.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm stepping into where I think it could be like a new sound for music licensing.
Okay.
So I'm stepping into like this original territory
Yeah.
where I've spent a lot of time just kind of replicating what I've heard. And now I'm like taking something that I'm good at, which is like, I'm not like a real like blues guitar player, but like I've learned like more than a few licks and stuff that I can get around on it.
Yeah.
But I'm stepping into this like blues world with like low 808 hip hoppy kind of stuff.
Sick.
And I have this song that is going to come out on a company called Premium Beat in like a month called City Swag.
Yeah.
And I just picture that the third Spider-Man movie where Tobey Maguire's like walking down the street and like he's buying his new outfits and he's got the girls beside him.
Yeah.
That's what I was picturing in my head when I was writing it. Just
That's sick.
What would that song be? You know, where like the hero in the movie is like at his peak and he's like getting all he's like splurging.
Do you know off the top of your head how many songs that you've sold for licensing? So not how many times they've been placed, but how many individual songs you've sold?
I have like a catalog of probably like 100 songs now
That have all been like
that are in
purchased or accepted or?
Well, it's hard to say. Sometimes I just don't know, but I have like 100 songs circulating in the internet.
Wow.
Which is actually pretty little. Like I know a few guys that are in like, they've got like a catalog of like 300, 400 songs.
Interesting.
And so I'm trying to make it a goal to like in the next decade to just have like 1,000 songs.
Damn.
Kind of circulating.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible because once you finish this song,
I should sorry to interrupt. I should like nuance. I should say not 1,000 songs, but 1,000 cues. Because there's a difference. Like a cue is just a musical piece for a picture.
I see.
And a song is like, you're a songwriter, you know? So what you do is songs, right?
Got it. Yeah. What's incredible about this is once you've written a cue, it's out there. It's out there to make you money indefinitely, I guess.
Yeah,
as long as those services are around.
I still get returns from that jingle I made when I was 18.
Yeah. Well, and now you're at this point where you're a full-time musician.
Yeah.
You don't have any other side jobs. Kind of going back to like talking about how Pennsylvania took you 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, music is a journey, especially trying to be a musician, trying to be a full-time musician or trying to be a professional. And it's taken you from the time that you were 18 to the time that you're 27 to be in this place in your life where you're able to make a living purely off music, which is incredible. And really admirable.
It's a long road. But I think it's just like if anybody dedicates 10 years to something, you know, of like something's going to break, something's going to pan out, you know.
You've had some pretty cool moments along that road, getting to work with some really amazing artists. What was it like being on the road with Austin Bosham?
That was probably one of the best moments of my life. I think if I look back, because that was like what I wanted to do as a kid. Like composing, music licensing is its own thing, and it's amazing to get to do that. I don't think people were doing that 20 years ago, like not just like your average Joe, because it just wasn't as accessible. But you know, when you and I were kids, like that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to tour. We wanted to go to new cities and meet new people and play in front of people every night. And that was like what fueled us. And I was doing that for like a hot second.
Did you have a favorite city on that tour?
Yeah, I loved Denver. And I actually we played no, we didn't play in Denver. We played in Boulder actually. Which I feel like anybody living in Colorado would like be like, yeah.
Well, is that the city that you didn't know the name?
Yeah.
Of where
Okay.
you were?
So yeah,
you got to share that story, man.
All right,
It's
I'll share
incredible.
the story. You beat me to it, but yeah, I loved Denver. I loved Boulder. You got to remember when you're on the road and you're driving for like, you have some like 14-hour stretches, like your brain gets tired. And and there, when we were playing our show in Boulder, I remember being on stage, and I was just like, I started talking to the audience for some reason. I don't even know why. I wasn't even the lead singer. But I was just saying like, oh yeah, like it's so good to be here. Like I've never this, and then like I just drew a blank where I was. I was like, oh, I've never been to what is this place called? And there's a guy, some schmuck, probably a really good guy.
Yeah.
He was like, we're in Boulder, you dingus. I was super embarrassed, but it was actually it's really funny to reflect on that.
I mean, it's a pretty endearing moment because you were how old too? Like,
I was young. I remember actually.
Were you like 20?
21.
21 on stage.
I just an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember actually, no, it was in, it wasn't there, but it was in Philadelphia when we were doing a sound check. And then I went over to the bar to just like get a drink of water or something, or maybe a whiskey. I can't remember. But, there was a guy who was like over at the bar, and he was just like, do you know how lucky you are? Do you know how lucky you are to be doing this?
Wow.
And I was like, super lucky. I actually really was lucky, like,
yeah.
Just how that tour unfolded was just crazy. Just a series of fortunate events, I guess. Right time, right place.
Yeah.
But Austin is a good friend of mine now, and we were both stoked that we got to do that together.
Yeah.
So.
Before you went on that tour, you and I were playing a lot of house shows in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And for me particularly, I mean, I know those were special for you. Those were really special shows for me. Is there any show that sticks out in your memory?
Yeah, there was one. It was at an apartment on a higher level, downtown
Vancouver.
Was it in Dan's
place?
I
think it was a friend of Dan's. I think the guy's name was Carson.
Carson, yeah, comedian, right?
Yep.
Yeah, at his place, they had that flag that said "Keep it in the ground."
Yes.
That we were playing next to.
Yeah.
And it was like
I think it was from a protest.
A protest for a
pipeline or something like that. Yeah.
And we
just found it on the street.
I just thought, I was like, this is so punk rock, like we're playing, like we have this like flag like protesting a pipeline, and it said "Keep it in the ground," and we were just playing in this like packed condo. There was maybe like 30 or 40 people there, but it just felt like just completely packed, just squished, like it was like a sold out thing. And yeah, you and I were just doing our thing. We were just singing your songs, and people were connecting with it. And I noticed, that was one thing I noticed about those house shows. People really listen. People were really listening to your lyrics. And that's what I think made it the most impactful, was people were walking away thinking like, oh, he's clearly trying to communicate an important message here. And then combining that with the intimate house setting made it just that more special, Yeah.
Yeah. One memory that you and I share, I know, that I love is when we did a release for the Dark EP, and we had our cousin-in-law, Luke Nielsen, who, shout out to Luke, is an incredible singer-songwriter.
He's
absolutely
the best.
Brilliant, talented man.
He's the best.
Huge inspiration to us.
Luke, I've told him this. I was like, he has an amazing record called My Dearest Friends, which is on Spotify, and it's like one of the best records.
We've listened to that record more times.
But I remember I told Luke just recently when I was up in Canada that if I could make a record that was half as good as that album, that I would be happy.
Wow.
The
memory that I have of him is he opened for us at that like basement co-op workspace in like Gastown.
Yeah.
And we had a fog machine.
Yeah.
Because we thought it'd be sick.
And it was sick.
It was sick. But we totally smoked him out. What did he say? Because you remember it better than I do.
I think he was just,
He made a comment.
He was just after every song, he was like, "You think we could bring the smoke down? You think we could bring the fog down?" And at one point, I think he was maybe coughing.
We're
I
just
could be making that up.
smoking him out, just covering him in fog.
It's like after every song, I'm having a really hard time seeing anything here.
Oh my goodness. I think that was the first night that we met Phoenix, wasn't it?
That's where I met Phoenix. Well,
shout out to Phoenix.
Actually, crazy story about Phoenix.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, Phoenix and I had met without even realizing that we met.
Really?
Because we were both... He played in Luke Nielsen's band. And so Luke introduced us to each other, and he was like, "Phoenix is a great producer. Like, you guys definitely should like get to know each other." And Phoenix and I were talking, and we didn't recognize each other. I had felt like I had never seen him before, and it was mutual. And we were both talking like about what music we were into, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I just saw this guy named Andy Schaaf play at the Fox Cabaret." And Phoenix was like, "No way, I was at the Fox Cabaret." And then when he said that, we both just like locked eyes, and we were like, "Holy crap. We stood in line together at the Fox Cabaret."
No way.
And we like just like said a few words to each other while we were in line. Like,
wow.
I was like, "Oh yeah," like, and then the memories just started flooding back. I was like in line, and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen Andy Schaaf before." And Phoenix was like, "Oh, I love it. Like, I am a huge Andy Schaaf fan." And then it was just a surreal moment. I love when things like that happen.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, in a way, it makes sense that the two guys in line for an Andy Schaaf concert also end up at another concert together, just as the performers.
Yeah.
In a city as small as Vancouver, but that's incredible.
Yeah, totally.
You had a brief stint working for a very famous artist. Are you allowed to talk about that, or did you sign an NDA about it?
Oh yeah, I can talk about that. I mean,
right on.
It's not a huge deal.
So what was that experience like working for Mike Posner?
That was probably one of the easiest jobs I've ever had, and it was short-lived, but that was actually the job that brought me out to LA, because we grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I told people I would never move to California. I remember even that like City and Colors song, the Golden State.
Yeah.
It's like, "Why is everyone still singing about California? You
Yeah.
know, haven't we heard enough about the Golden State?" And I was like, that's the anthem. And at the time of my life when this was all happening, I was living in New York, and it just so happened that I got this like opportunity to like apply for being a personal assistant for Mike Posner. And I just felt like this is an opportunity that I can't pass up.
Yeah.
I wasn't even that big. I don't know if I should say this, but I wasn't even that big of a fan of of his music. I was just Mike. I'm a huge Mike Posner fan now. No, I really am. That he's like hugely inspired me ever since I got to see how he lives, how he operates, and all that. And obviously I liked Cooler Than Me, you know? But other than that, I just didn't know him too well. But I just knew that he would be a great person to meet, that it would be important for me to connect with him. And so I put all of my assumptions aside, and I applied, and it just turned out that like his management thought we would be a good fit for whatever reason. I don't entirely know why. Like, I just sent my normal music resume, and they flew me out, and we did like a trial run with Mike Posner. I spent a lot of time at his house. I didn't stay at his house. I stayed at a different house. But it was super simple things. Like, I was just doing errands for him and like taking him to and from places. Like, he had kickboxing, he had guitar lessons, he went and did some like interviews that I drove him to, and I would connect his phone calls with other people. I set up his Wi-Fi router. I meditated with him, and
you're kind of like his buddy. His companion.
Yeah, I mean, he had a few buddies with him, but I was also getting paid to just do his errands.
Did you ever meet Black Bear?
I went to Black Bear's house.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I never actually met Black Bear though.
What part of
I
LA?
mean, maybe I did. I know that I dropped off a bunch of merchandise at Bear's mansion, or I don't know. Yeah, it was a mansion, and I walked in and it just looked like there had been a party the night before or something. I should probably not say too much about that, but
wow.
I remember dropping off some merchandise at Bear's place, and I never actually got it.
Is that what he called him? Bear?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're buds. Like
Well,
they
I mean, they just
are
put
like,
out mansions too. So
yeah. They're very close.
How long did that last? You working for Mike?
I think 2 months maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't very long.
Yeah.
But it was just the right amount,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
After you worked for Mike, there's a period of your life that maybe not a lot of people know about. I don't know how open you are about this, but you worked at a glass factory for a period of time. What was it like to go from touring with Austin Basham and working for Mike Posner, living in New York, living in LA, to being back in Oregon, working in this kind of like hardcore industrial environment?
Oh, it sucked. It was humbling. Just before after I left working with Mike Posner, because he ended up going with like a new personal assistant whose name is Nick, apparently.
It's bizarre that I've met that guy.
Yeah.
Last year.
I ended up working as like a junior composer for Hans Zimmer's production company.
That's right.
Brief story. We don't even have to go into it because I just did not last long there. It was like such a difficult environment.
What was the most difficult thing about it?
Just the challenge of like the turnaround, like writing really high quality music super fast. And I was not good enough at the time to do something like that. And also it was like pretty long hours, and I was just sifting through doing a lot of file work that I didn't really particularly enjoy. But I ended up leaving that because I wanted to go on a tour again. I loved touring with Austin Basham so much. I wanted to do that again. And I had an opportunity to go play electric guitar with another artist. And then when I was getting ready to do that, that tour canceled and I had no money. And I had no choice but to like go back home. I moved in with my parents again, and I was like starting over. I thought I was done with LA. This was all when I was 21 too.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot happened in that year that felt like things were going like really up, but it was accelerating so fast, and it just like crashed immediately. And my best bud got me a job at a factory that he was working at, and I just kind of started over. I'm like, you know what? I'm probably done with music, actually. I was like, I think I like gave it a shot, and I think I'm done. You
actually thought that?
I think I'll probably keep doing commercial music or something like that. I'll keep writing jingles for R&E Audio. But I was like, I'm just going to go into this blue collar job. Yeah, and I remember having a really bleak outlook on life at that time. I was like, yep, gave it a shot, and everything, I just kind of washed up. And yeah, I worked at that glass factory. And I remember just like working on an assembly line and thinking like, man, a month ago I was like working with the biggest pop star in the world. Like the first guy in the world to get 1 billion streams on Spotify. First guy to be, or not the first guy, but like first guy to get 1 billion streams on Spotify. He was like in the 30 under 30 most successful people on the planet. I listened to his music when I was in middle school. Cooler Than Me. I remember hearing that, like playing that in the car. with some friends and stuff like that. And so I remember just working on this factory on this assembly line in this factory, like loading up some like these big units of glass, and just thinking like, man, I screwed up. I did something, and I couldn't fully accept it, but I was also slowly accepting it. Yeah.
How did you make it through that time?
I actually made it through that time by beginning to exercise a lot and like taking care of my body, because I was super unhealthy, like weighed 120 pounds, hardly ate, didn't have any like idea of what it meant to take care of my body, but also take care of my finances, had no savings. And it was around that time that I started getting into that, like focusing on exercise, diet, sleep, saving money. And from there, I started being able to building a little bit more confidence in myself, just because I was like putting on some weight, getting stronger, had some money in the bank, feeling like a little bit better about myself, So it was like the simple things, like those simple steps that I just totally skipped. Because also at the time, when I was that age, I just thought exercise was stupid.
Really?
Yeah, I was just like, I'm a musician. I don't need to exercise. I just want to focus on my music. And I probably even had that like starving musician mindset ingrained in me. Like, this is what you're supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be disheveled and unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes you an artist. So,
what do you think was the biggest takeaway from that year? And also that experience.
The experience working in the factory?
Working in the glass factory, yeah.
The biggest takeaway. That's a good question. I guess I'm just grateful that I'm not there anymore. Like, some people don't have a choice, and it's unfortunate. Like, you just, for whatever reason, some people probably ended up being there in the same way that I did. They had a lot going for them, and then they lost it, and then they had to take that job, and then they had responsibilities, people to take care of maybe. I was still single, so I still am single. But
Ayo, ladies.
But I just had an opportunity to be able to bounce back from there. But yeah, I think maybe the biggest takeaway was just learning how to take care of the body, learning how to build some strength, how to eat better, how to sleep better, how to get into a routine, learning how to like think about the next steps. I spent a lot of time just jumping from tadpole to tadpole to tadpole till there wasn't any more tadpoles left. And then in that area of my life, I started learning how to like prep for a future. And I'm thankful for that, actually, because if I had kept going on the route that I was in, if I hadn't gone to that like factory or that start over phase, I'd probably still have the same awful habits that I had at that time, which was just like not taking care of myself, not learning how to save any money or anything like that. So I guess looking back on it, I'm thankful that it happened.
Yeah.
So that's how when you fail, you learn from your mistakes. You learn how to do better the next time.
Yeah, it sounds like it was an extremely formative time in your life.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's those hardest moments that actually...
Here, you want to pour
some
of this water?
Pour it out. Pour it. Okay. So after Hard Tongue, you made the bold move...
Shout out to Hard Tongue Glass Industries.
You made the bold move to move to Los Angeles.
Again, after I didn't want to.
In a van, your childhood Mazda MPV with your older brother.
Yeah. You.
That's me. What What was the hardest part about sharing a van with me?
Well, first
In
off,
LA.
I didn't want to do it initially. And I was thinking, like, you know what? I have some money in the bank. I'm feeling like really strong. Like, I'm going to get my own place soon and probably move in with Luke. And I were talking about being roommates. Luke was my best bud from back home and who lives here now. But you were the one who told me, you want to move down to LA. You want to live in a van. You want to do music. And I was just thinking, this guy's crazy.
You know what's funny is I actually don't remember this element of our story. I don't remember encouraging you to live in the van with me.
I felt a pull from you.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have done it by myself.
Yeah.
I had always kind of I found the van life thing appealing because I liked the idea of people like really wanting to like live life on their own terms and pursue whatever gave them joy, if it was some sort of like artistic job or just like selling coffee out of your van and connecting with people. I found that appealing. So that was always in the back of my head of maybe something I would do.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it would be at that time. And it wasn't until you told me that that's what you wanted to do that I was like, oh, okay, maybe. I don't really want to, but maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you pulled, like, at some point I felt like you convinced me to do it. And then it seemed like everybody thought that it was a stupid idea.
That's true.
Yeah.
People doubted us.
A lot of people doubted us. I think almost everyone did. I don't think anybody really understood it.
Yeah.
And I think I was also just fed up of working at that factory too.
Yeah, you're ready for a release.
Yeah.
Ready for an escape pod.
Yeah. And also, like, it was just sweet that you were finishing up school, and I remember what we had in Vancouver in the music scene, playing house shows, and how special that was.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to kind of reboot that again, I think gave me some extra motivation.
Mm-hmm. What was hard though? What do you think was like some of the hard points of living in a van with me?
I don't know. I actually, like, I look back on that time with really fond memories.
Yeah.
You're just totally synced up.
Well, we didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like
we
we
kind of
were-
had to have a very similar rhythm. Like we went to the gym at the same time. We had our meals, like breakfast at the same time, making coffee and oatmeal in our jet boil
Yeah.
out in the 24-hour fitness parking lot.
Yeah.
We ended up having the same job, working at Trader Joe's.
Great job.
Yeah. Our lives definitely synced up. The funny thing was when we had different shifts.
Yeah.
And one of us would be asleep in the back of the van while the other person drove to work.
What shifts were you working? Were you working the morning shifts? You were working morning.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you might have been working
I never
morning.
worked a single morning shift.
Really?
Yeah.
So I would drive and you'd be asleep. You definitely drove sometimes and I was asleep in the back.
Yeah, I can't remember. All I know is I worked like middle shift and also evening,
Yeah.
but never morning. So, but I loved that we just had everything synced. I look back on those times with like really fond memories because we were both like the strongest that we had ever been. We were going to the gym every single day.
It was crazy.
And eating an insane amount of food, all like whether we were at Trader Joe's
Yeah.
or like we would just go to Whole Foods or something. Like we were just pigging out,
Yeah.
and we had all this money that we were saving because we weren't spending it on rent or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved being in the gym and using the sauna every day, like doing a workout and then doing the sauna, talking to whoever's in there and just chatting it up with them, and then going to bed and then just repeating it. I loved that. So I don't really look back on anything at that time where anything was really difficult. I think honestly, life was a little bit easier because you just knew what you were doing that day.
I think the hardest thing for me was the van couldn't exactly be lived in. It could only be slept in.
Yeah.
So if you slept in, By the time it's 10 o'clock in the morning, you were cooking.
Well, that's the thing. You don't sleep in. You start your day.
Yep.
And that's
no choice.
that was, I swear, like those, I lived in a van for 3 years, or I slept in a van for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the most productive 3 years of my life. and I saved a ton of money, and I got more work in music than I ever had in my entire life. And I was making money doing it too. And today, like, I am still making money from all that work that I put in while I was doing that as well. So I look back on myself. I look back on the Nick that chose to sleep in his SUV, just to like get a leg up, and I commend him. I don't recommend it for everybody because it's not safe technically, but
well, I don't know about that.
It really did like benefit me in the long run, financially, and I don't know, probably spiritually and probably physically, because I wasn't sleeping in or anything like that. I was just like I was like proactive, just on point. Every day was a system. Like I needed to be in this place and this place and this place, do this amount of work and this amount of work. I remember needing to get a certain amount of studio work done in a certain time frame, because I wasn't going to be able to get back to it until like the next day, because I'd have to go to a studio that I was renting out, because I couldn't just like go about it whenever I wanted to, you know. So yeah, living in a van had its benefits.
What would you have changed about the setup of the van if you could go back and change it?
The setup of the van?
Yeah.
Probably having some sort of heating. Like,
oh my goodness.
There's some cold nights. But it was also LA,
man.
so
yeah.
But I think there was more cold nights than there were hot nights. Maybe.
Yeah. I just remember the hot mornings.
I remember like really wishing and hoping for summer to get here quick, because like I remember like really freezing, like really bundling up.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Yeah, there were some nights where I remember sleeping in that car and had maybe like 2 blankets and just shivering and just thinking like, what am I doing?
Oh my goodness, man. I mean, to clarify, there was no insulation in this van. It was basically
just
a minivan with a bed in it.
It was an old SUV.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Would you go back to the van life?
Not in the SUV, but I would love to have a van like yours. Like, I'd love a Mercedes Sprinter van, just because, you know, you and I are probably going to be touring in the next year or two.
Yeah.
So it's just for like saving money, you know, just seems more financially prudent to have a van instead of having to rent something or paying for lodging and all that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I see it in the future. I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me the ways that people exist as van lifers. Some people are very open about it. I'm super open about it. Other people are very secretive about it. And then people kind of find their in-between spots. Where did you land in that spectrum?
Well, I didn't want anybody to know that I was sleeping in my car, because it just kind of gave a bad impression. And I was also trying to keep up appearances as well. Like I was going to do this for as long as I could to just save money. But I didn't want people to think that I was like a hobo. You know, I didn't want people to think that I was you know, lazy or anything like that. Like, I wanted to give the impression that I was really driven, really hardworking, and that I was like really serious about what I was pursuing. And I felt like I actually really did do that. A lot of people that I met at the time, they did have a lot of respect after they saw, like, they would see my work ethic at Trader Joe's, but then like going into the studio and working on that after hours, and then going into the studio in the morning, and then Trader Joe's, and then back into the studio, and then also doing like a CrossFit camp in between all of that. Anybody
shout out to Justin.
Yeah, shout out to Mood Swing. Mood Swing is a rapper and also a CrossFit coach.
Justin Bird.
And he's incredible. But everybody in that sphere, they looked at me and they were like, Nick is driven. And that was the impression that I wanted to give. And so I never wanted to make anybody think like, oh, like Nick's lazy, because the moment that would happen is the moment that everything would probably get shut down. You know,
what do you mean by that?
Like people were very accepting of what I was doing. They were like, yeah, we can help. Like, we want to help you out in any sort of way that we can. Like, if you ever need a place to shower, or if you need to park your van here, and all that. Because they were just trying to help out. They were seeing the flame, and they were trying to keep fanning. They were trying to still fan it. You know. So, but if I ever gave an impression that I was just sponging off of society or something, then it would just get shut down. You know. So I think people also knew like this is a temporary thing at the same time. So, yeah. What was the question?
I can't remember what the specific question was. Fast forward, after the van, you had an experience where you got to work in a church, and you got a lot of experience doing music directing.
Yeah.
I know that was a big transition.
Yeah,
for you,
that was just
step.
that was an amazing opportunity to grow as a musician. And it was also a pivot through the pandemic as well. Because, you know, I was working at Trader Joe's, which thankfully I got to stay employed all through COVID, and I was also doing music licensing as well. And so I got to just make additional income on that through COVID as well. But eventually, like, I started playing electric guitar in this church, and there was this opportunity to come up where like it was an internship, and they offered a free housing and an opportunity to grow as a music director. And so, like, when you're living in a van during the pandemic and gyms are closed, like it was pretty difficult. And so I saw this as like a real natural opportunity where like I'm in this community. They like me, I like them. This seems like a really good fit, and it's going to give me an opportunity to kind of transition into a new living situation. So thankfully, they brought me on, and I moved into that apartment that they provided, and yeah, I got to grow as a music director, which music director for bands is just, at least in churches, is essentially somebody who is directing band members of like where to go in the dynamics of a song, if chords need to be switched up, like being able to like throw that out really quickly, and it's a real skill. Like, it takes a certain kind of tenacity and person to be able to do that confidently and competently. And I was like not great at it getting into it. It took a lot of like figuring out how to do it, a lot of trial and error, but thankfully I got to learn how to like figure that out, and that's actually, I've been able to bring that into a lot of things outside of church music as well, in my own bands, but also in composing and arranging as well. Just like learning how to think how a band is supposed to function. It really expanded my like sonic periphery, so to speak. I used to, when I composed music, I used to just think about Nick, the band. And now when I'm composing, I'm thinking about more than just myself. Like, I'm like, well, like, how is this bass supposed to be playing? How is it supposed to be fitting? And how's this drum supposed to be fitting, and all that as well? Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. What were those challenges? You said there were certain challenges that you had getting into music directing and learning how to be a music director. What were those challenges?
You know, I think a lot of it was honestly just like basic music theory. Like I didn't know anything about like chord numbers or anything like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And then when I finally like learned about that unlocked so much for me musically, because then all of a sudden I was able to like learn any song I wanted in any key, because I didn't have to think about like, oh, this is a G sharp over E flat or something like, you know, something like that. I'm just like, that's like a, you know, it's like a 1/3 chord or whatever, you know, like, and I knew exactly how to play it in any key. Basically just knowing shapes on instruments. But difficulties were really just the balancing act of like focusing on you playing an instrument. I'm playing guitar. I'm talking through a microphone, directing what a drummer's supposed to be doing, what a bassist is supposed to be doing, and what a keyboard player is supposed to be doing. And actually, I think one thing I learned was like, and it's really similar to learning how to become like a mixing engineer, is like knowing when to say something and when not to say something. It's like a mixing engineer knows when to go in and touch something, fiddle with something, and when to not touch something at all. Like there's tracks in professional mixes that don't have any sort of plug-in on them, just completely raw, you know, because it's like, sounds great. Like, don't touch it. And with a music director, sometimes it's like, you don't have to say anything. Like the flow of the band is great and everybody's locked in. If you did say something, like it could throw off the band, you know? So like figuring out that balance of like how much to say, how much not to say, like when, like, am I shouting out the word chorus too much or something like that, you know? Like, am I saying something when I don't even necessarily need to? So, and it's going to be different for every environment of like what to say, what not to say. But just in that time, in that apprenticeship, that was what was really coming to my mind. It was like, how expressive do I need to actually be, and finding the balance. So I had some services that I would be directing where I felt like I was shouting out too much. And then I had some where I was shouting out too little. So just finding that in between. And making a team feel comfortable playing together is a huge part of being a director as well. Making sure that everybody is just feeling like they're on the same page. Because it's easy, like when you don't have enough time to practice or something like that, everybody's looking to like one person to kind of lean on. So learning that skill as a musician, to have people look at you and lean on you to know where we're going, was hugely impactful for me to learn that skill, because now I can take that into any other musical endeavor, and if whatever setting I'm in, I kind of have the wherewithal now for people to like look at me and like know exactly what we're supposed to be doing, you know, because it's like a daunting, confusing thing at first, and it just really what it comes down to is just like doing it a ton and a ton and a ton until it makes sense. So
on top of all these experiences, writing, music for sync licensing, music directing, working with other artists, touring, you've had all these formative experiences, and now you're about to release your first debut record on like a large public scale, because you've released stuff in the past, much smaller capacities. Tell me about this record that's coming out.
Yeah, this record is my baby. It's, you know, it's people say the saying goes that you spend your whole life working on your first record, and then your second record you have to bust out really quickly. And then the third record is when you like blow people's socks off, you know? You blow their hair back or whatever that saying is. But I put a lot of pressure on myself to make a record that I was going to be happy with in the years to come. Like I wanted to write songs that told a story authentic to myself, authentic to my upbringing, my environment, with my voice, and like kind of like not selfishly, but I wanted people to connect with it. So I don't think that's selfish, you know. Like I'm trying to make something that is myself, which nobody has any reason to like listen to me. And so having that as the pressure of trying to make something that would make somebody want to listen to me was the crux, I guess. That was the hardest point of like trying to figure out, what is this album going to sound like? What am I going to say that's going to make people care? And I didn't want to put anything out until it was gonna do that. And so with this album, I sat with myself for a long time. Like at one point I told myself, I'm like, I just need to get this thing done. This has been kind of held over my head for a long time, and I've always wanted to put out a record. I think it's time. Like I have all these ideas. I think I have an idea now of like what I want to share. And so I just decided one day to like dedicate a few hours every week to go into a coffee shop like it was a job and to just like write it out, arrange it, start to finish, and have like a coherent story. And I did that for probably like 8 months. Like I had all this material that were like demos and like scribbles and all of that. And I just took all of it and put it in an order that made sense to me. So it was like 8 years worth of material that I condensed into about probably 8 months of like writing it out. It's funny that number has followed me around, but I just go into the coffee shop and like write it out like I was writing a novel or something. And
what coffee shop did you go
to? Primo Coffee in Santa Monica.
Nice.
Yeah, Primo Roasters, I think is maybe the official.
What is the story that the album is trying to convey, or that the album does convey, I should say?
It's about, well, for one, I wanted it to capture the landscape of where we grew up, because there's the Pacific Northwest just has this inherent beauty about it that evokes songwriting, and I wanted to be able to make music that was going to portray where I came from, so that when people hear it, they think about that place. But the story that I wanted to tell, mostly about myself, is like a journey of like growing up, traveling, and kind of like no matter where you end up, you're on this journey of exploring friendships, exploring relationships, living with family, and also kind of exploring the meaning of life, exploring faith in a higher power, exploring like inner doubt, inner turmoil, and taking all those concepts and like putting it in like an aesthetic of almost like a I don't know, just a typical American troubadour. Like it's all I wanted to make something that was like somewhat similar to just the American folk singer. Like this is an archetype that our country has just kind of, or just North America as a whole, has kind of just been developing, is like the idea of a singer who's traveling and figuring life out and telling it in a poetic narrative. And so that was the story I wanted to tell, of like growing up in the country, going into the city, and the experiences that you get going through that. And so the album's kind of left open-ended. Like it's left from leaving the country that you and I grew up in, the beautiful landscapes that we had, and kind of going into more of a chaotic city state. And it kind of leaves me room into this next album that I'm thinking about, of just like writing more about living in the city now. You know, it's like the album it's almost left on a cliffhanger, so to speak. It literally like ascends, like at the end of the album it like has a huge ascension and then it just like drops. Yeah, so I would say predominantly it's about learning how to grow up and how to let go and what to hold on to. And I think that's important. Like thinking about that, like what are the things that we should hold on to? What are the things that we should let go of?
Yeah.
And when you finally think about that, you're able to kind of move on, you know? And that's what people are supposed to do.
What are some of those things for you? What are things that you want to hold on to and things that you want to let go of?
Well, that's the thing. I don't have the answers, but I like the idea that I was exploring this. I have a few songs. I clearly like the album is clearly very nostalgic. And I think a lot of things that I hold on to are the beauty of where I grew up and always kind of wanting to like go back to it. And I don't entirely know if that's something that people should deal with. But like I have one song on the album, it's about the town that I was born in, Yakima. And the idea of that song is that this city has a hold on me for some reason, even though I've never been there in 20 plus years. And I still feel like a connection to it for some reason. Like, why do I feel a connection to it? Like, what about it, like, struck a chord in me so deep that I would want to write a song about it and sing that into perpetuity as well. Was it the landscape? Was it the people in my life at the time? I don't know.
What do you remember from Yakima?
I mean, I remember neighbors. I remember the snow. I remember the rain. I remember watching movies. Yeah, simple things like that.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, like the difference that we have when it comes to our memory of Yakima.
Yeah,
I feel like I have a vivid memory of Yakima still.
yeah. I have some vivid memories. I
was in kindergarten in Yakima.
I discovered the guitar and the piano in Yakima. And was immediately drawn to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's fun. It's good to be asked about this, actually, to like really, to like fully articulate what this album is. And I do think that for anybody listening, it is like the exploration of like, what do we hold on to? What do we let go of? And it's going to be different for everybody, but it's important. Because when you figure that out, you learn how to move on into the next part of your life, you know? And I held on to, just to get meta, I guess, like I held on to making an album for a long time. and I felt like I couldn't break through the next wave in my life until I got that thing done. And now I can kind of let go of it and focus on the next thing.
What's the title of the album?
The title of the album is Foothills, which I intentionally named because I intentionally named it as my first record because the foothills are the bottom of a mountain. It's like the first sort of stepping point into a higher mountain range.
Yeah.
And it was also the street that we grew up on in Oregon. And so I just felt like that seems like an appropriate name for a first record. Like, this is the street I grew up on. This is where a lot of my inspiration kind of bloomed. But also, it's like it's the base of a mountain, you know? It's you can go up from here. And I also felt like Foothills at the same time was like every sort of step you make in life is like this new hill that you have to walk over, you have to overcome. And so, every song is about, there's some sort of in every song there's some sort of obstacle, I guess, to like get over, so
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And when can we expect the release?
just
of Foothills?
early in the new year, as soon as I can. There's a single coming out in probably January,
Oh,
and then another single in maybe February, so
Okay.
probably March.
what single in January? What's gonna come out in January?
You have to wait and find out.
Dang. Okay, I'm excited for that. I hope it's Yakima.
Yeah.
Dude, it's incredible to see your journey. Honestly, I'm so proud of you, man. I'm so proud of you, the artist that you become, stepping out onto your own as an artist, as a singer-songwriter, being known as Nicholas Kozushko,
Yeah.
stepping into the spotlight.
It's,
And also
yeah,
having
yeah.
the support of your community behind you. What does the continuation of this look like? What is the dream? What do you hope for? What do you want to see in the future?
I think I'd like to do like a trilogy album, like an album trilogy. A lot of my favorite series, like in movies, all have trilogies. And it just feels like a good like start and end. And then, maybe after that, like just make records for other people into perpetuity. But one dream that I've had for a really long time, and I wrote the album to be done in this fashion, is to play in a concert hall with an orchestra behind me, to do a blend of like a live band with an orchestral element in there as well. That to me is like, it's like the blend of my the composer side of me and the rock and roll side of me as well. That's like where the two worlds would kind of combine. But if I did something like that, you could, I could probably die after that.
Yeah. Uh-oh. I might have stepped on that cord. Oh, is it still buzzing? A little bit. Oh, let's pause it for a second. Dude, what is that? Is that a grounding issue?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing happened to Dakota. What about some artist collabs? Who are some artists that you would love to collab with?
Gregory Alan Isaacoff.
If you're listening,
Yeah.
Nick's coming for you.
Yeah, I'd love to do something with him. I think something with Josh Garrels would be amazing too.
My goodness.
Obviously, Dallas Green, City and Color, Leif Volbeck. I would also say something with like Nils Fromm. Man,
Yeah.
some sort of ambient soundscapey collaboration with him would be really cool.
Yeah.
Oliver Arnold's Hani Arani. This is just all my 2023 Spotify rap, basically. Trying to think. I mean, obviously you, like,
Ayo.
I feel like that goes without saying though. Like
We got some
being
more.
like you and I still have a good like 5 albums to to crank out. I should also probably
Yeah.
reiterate that like, I mentioned doing this orchestral concert hall thing and then I could die, but I would like to get like at least 5 albums with you.
Dang.
Something about 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
We've set the bar.
Yeah, catalog.
Set the bar high.
50 songs.
In terms of collabs, what was kind of cool today when I was playing Pennsylvania is the algorithms that Spotify has is just so incredible.
Yeah,
Like,
I was amazed
your
by that.
song has literally just come out and it's already put like, if you just play just the one song, it's gonna play like similar artists
Yeah.
next. And Noah Gunderson
Oh,
kept on getting played in.
oh, really?
Whatever this like, it's not. It's like it is a playlist, but it's not necessarily one that you can like find. It's just what they
Yeah.
automatically are gonna play. But you were queued up with some Noah Gunderson songs.
Come on, man.
I
love that.
don't know how they tell. Like
I didn't get anybody that I knew, but everybody that came on after Pennsylvania, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is scarily like spot on.
Yeah.
So super cool. I'm glad it blends. I'm glad it syncs well. I mean, it's a unique song. So, and I won't deny that.
I kind of wonder if there's some technique, or not technique, but like if you were to release a song and then you just play that song and then you see what else like Spotify plays, it almost is very telling about the music that you made. It's like, what did Spotify choose to put you along with, and who are those artists and what are they doing?
Yeah,
which is really interesting. I'm
glad I didn't get synced up with like a reggae band or something.
It's Spotify knows. I don't know how they do it, but my guess is that they're actually
don't you when
analyzing.
You submit it, you say what you're similar to?
Well, so you do, but here's the thing: like, there's so much music out there. Like, I probably wrote down the same things that you did.
Yeah,
folk, Americana, indie. The song is in English. The instrumentation is guitar, banjo, whatever. We probably wrote down similar things. I don't know that this is true, but I think that Spotify, this is my gut, I think that Spotify analyzes the actual song, like has some kind of like AI analysis of like, okay, this is the type of song.
You're probably right. Yeah.
And it fits in with all these other things that have similar patterns.
Yeah. But
hey, I mean, you got put in with Noah.
That's great. Noah's awesome.
That's pretty tight. Going into this, I actually thought that this was going to be like one of the hardest interviews I did because of the fact that like we grew up together, and I obviously
thought we'd get into a fight.
No, I didn't think that we would get into a fight. I just thought that like it would be weird asking questions that in a way I know the answer to. But what's funny is like, well, I didn't know the answer to a lot of these things, but knowing you so well, I think made it easier to like really ask certain questions like that I just wouldn't know about other people.
Yeah. You knew how to ask, all the pressure points. You knew the tough questions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some questions I wouldn't even ask on the air. Keep that offline. No, man, I'm super excited for everything to come. We just played that awesome show.
Yeah.
Which was a huge highlight for like us performing.
That was like one of the best shows we've ever done.
Yeah.
That turnout was just so encouraging.
Yeah.
It made me realize that we have, when we combine all of our friends together and we try to put something on, like we can really make something special and beautiful. Like there's this community that's hungry to go see some live music.
Yeah.
And just experience that culture, And I think that's what a lot of people want to get when they come to LA.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. Like it took a long time to figure that out. You and I had we've been here for
5 years.
5 years,
Yeah.
Trying to get that house show thing on the
totally
going again and just didn't really work, and wasn't the same thing in Vancouver. And
yeah, on that note, I mean, what advice would you give to somebody who's moving to LA to pursue being an artist?
Well, I think about the advice I was given when I moved to LA, which was don't get a job.
Yeah.
But if I had done it that way, because I had a job for all through or a job outside of music all through like the 4 out of 5 years that we'd been here. And I don't think I would have been able to last here as long as I did if I didn't have a job. So I mean, the advice would just be for anybody that is going to LA and they don't know anybody, like be prepared to just work all the time, nonstop. Like,
it's true.
Go get a job.
That's true.
But then don't let that be your job. Like, you got to remember what you're here for. Morning and night, like you are doing music, whatever it is that you're trying to get good at. And then just like get out and play shows, like go connect with people, and it depends on what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to be a producer, like go get artists to work with, find people that want to link up with you, want to grow with you, want to get better at something with you. Just be courageous. Say yes to like a zillion opportunities, and all like the one thing I would say to anybody wanting to pursue music in LA is the most important thing is to focus on getting really good at your craft. Like whatever it is that you do, get really good at it. Like it's like your samurai sword. Always be practicing. Always be learning how to sharpen the blade, because if you're good, people are going to want to work with you because you kind of you start to stand out among the rest. So and then also I think there's just somebody actually asked me today, like if you've been doing music, like if music's like your full-time thing, how do you not get like tired of it? How do you not get bored of it? And I just told him, like, I love getting better. Like I love the challenge of finding something that I can't do and like learning how to do it really well. And so I never get bored of doing music because there's always something to be getting better at. And there's a lot of things that I still suck at. So, what are
you working on getting better at right now?
Well, right now I'm at this point where like when it comes to a lot of stuff that I'm producing in music licensing, I'm like mixing, mastering it all myself. And I'm at this point now where it's like, it's really hit like this new level of like, this is good. And now I'm just trying to like double down on that, now that it's at this point where it's like, this is good, let's make like 20 more of those or 100, like, let's make a lot more of those, and see where that gets me. And also just like trying to like keep up with my guitar chops. I also practice singing like all the time. Like I am practicing getting a stronger mixed voice. I'm trying to practice like singing in front of a microphone, all those things where like you never know that that's going to be an issue until you actually like confront it. And if you're doing it in front of a bunch of people, it can be pretty daunting, and it can scar you as well. Like it can make you not want to do it ever again. So I would just say the key to confidence is just practice, So just get to the point where you don't have to think about doing something. Like music just needs to become a second language to you. Like you just got to become fluent in it. And I find a lot of fulfillment and joy in pursuing that, just because it's like the opportunities are endless, But so anybody moving to LA, like just focus on being good. Don't get swept up in the party life for all the kids. Don't do drugs. Take care of yourself, sleep, practice, be nice to people, and don't stop. Don't quit. Just keep going.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling myself.
What about advice for somebody who wants to get into music licensing?
Yeah, I would just say listen to what's out there and copy it. Like just learn how they do it. They know what they're doing. And I was told that same thing. Like I remember working on some stuff and trying to do some drum programming, and this producer that I was working with, he was like just copy, like listen to drummers on Spotify or a music publishing website and just do what they do, because you don't know what you're doing. They know what good drums are supposed to sound like. So just copy that. And there's this idea of like copying something, and then after you've copied it like 10 times, doing it without that reference. And eventually that kind of bleeds in, your own personality sort of bleeds into it. And you kind of have something new and different, but it's also like it's like honoring the people that were better than you at the same time, So yeah, I'd just say anybody that wants to get into composing, like just go listen to a ton of jingles and just try to replicate it, try to meet it, try to beat it, meet it and beat it. That's one thing that I'm actually always challenged with. Like when I work with a team, sometimes in the discussion we'll be like writing some lyrics, and I'll send like a sheet of lyrics that I felt like were really good, and then I'll have one guy who'll be like, he's like, yeah, these lines are good, but this line, like, can you beat this line? And I try to have that philosophy with like everything that I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, can this be better? Yeah, like let's make it better, you know. And just and obviously like to a limit, you know, like you got to have some grace for yourself too, or else you're never going to progress. But always kind of having like that 5% of like, let's always try to do it better and better and better. That's how you like over a span of a long amount of time, like that's how you see a difference in the quality of your work. Yeah.
Wow. Dude, it's really inspiring, honestly.
I'm glad
to see the track that you've been on, the level of dedication, but also the patience and the persistence. I think that the words that you've shared are going to be really meaningful to a lot of people. I guess we'll see where all this takes you, man.
Thanks, man. I'm hope.
Excited.
And if not, you know, this is just another podcast on the internet.
Dude, this won't be the last one that we do. I'm excited.
I hope not, yeah.
I'm excited to see where things go. To see what the updates are on the next episode. To hear about the future albums, the future releases. Where can people find your music? Where can people follow your journey? What links and socials do you want to share?
Yeah, well, I'm on Spotify, iTunes, and all the other sub media platforms. Just look up my full name, Nicholas Kozushko. And Instagram, I just have like a little cute moniker, Cozy Sounds with a K.
It's a little easier.
You know, just it's Kozushko, but cozy. Kozushko, but cozier, I guess. And just Cozy Sounds on Instagram. I've got a YouTube channel, but like if you go through Instagram, you can hit my bio and there's links to everything. So yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thanks for bringing me on.
Love you, dude.
You too, man.
Thank you for listening to the Spring Street Podcast. If you'd like to support the show, sign up for the Patreon to receive exclusive behind-the-scenes content and check out the sponsor links in the description.